Return, O Virgin Daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's House of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging House of Joseph here in North America.
Welcome to Reunion Roadmap. This is Al McCarn, Executive Director, B'nai Yosef North America. Along with me, Tefania Pappas, our Communications Director. Tefania, you went to Houston, Texas this week. Who did you talk to?
Yeah, League City to be exact. And we went out there and interviewed Greg Raley. He's actually been with B'nai Yosef North America. He's gone to our first summit. He's also been in the National Congress that was over there in Ariel. So,
can you give us a hint of what you talked about?
He shared a lot about the impact that B'nai Yosef North America has had on his life and how that's been a significant aspect of him keeping on this whole idea of the restoration and how much that has been an inspiration to him.
And that's why we're all here, seeing the people of Ephraim coming to understand who they are here on the continent of North America and helping to bring the family together. Now, Greg's been doing that for a while in the greater Houston area. There's a growing community of Torah observant followers of Yeshua in the greater Houston area. Now, later on in the program, as usual, we have a midrash from Barry Phillips and David Jones. This time, the subject is cold love. Now, that sounds kind of ominous, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It does, but I think you'll appreciate the observations they have on just what does cold love mean and what's the difference between, well, the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, because it's all connected there. And in between, we got some great music. We have House of Aaron. Their orchestra and their vocalists will be with us during the first segment, and then in the second segment, we have more music of Jimmy Black. So, Tefania, we have a good show lined up.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, let's go on down to Houston, Texas, and let's listen to Greg Raley's story.
Welcome to the interview portion of Reunion Roadmap. I'm Tefania Pappas, Communications Director for B'nai Yosef North America, and we're going all the way to League City, Texas, which is a suburb south of Houston, I believe, and we're going to be talking to Greg Raley. Greg, introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, I am Greg Raley, and I'm glad to be with you today. I've got to know you, Zephaniah, on our trips to Israel and to the B'nai Yosef events. But I am just a handyman and a grandpa and a husband of 38 years. Our anniversary is tomorrow. I went to Christ for the Nations in Dallas, Texas, where I met my wife. Christ for the Nations is a Bible school, charismatic Bible school. So that's a little bit about me. Got 3 grown kids and 7 grandkids.
So how did your testimony in Yeshua, so you mentioned that you went to Christ for the Nations, so the Messiah caught you at a very young age, maybe. That's what I'm assuming.
Well, you know, I went to a church from, I guess, about 12 years old. My mother got our family to start going to church, and then when I was about almost 18, I began to have some serious conversations with the Father and made a commitment to walk with Yeshua. At that time, I didn't know him as Yeshua, and then as Jesus. But, you know, I learned about his Hebrew name, and that's kind of when I got started with my walk.
What happened with the Torah awakening? When did that occur in your life?
I went off to Bible college, 19. I was living in Houston at the time, went to Dallas to go to Bible college, and at the end of my 2-year schooling there, I went to I'll say the end. I went 2 separate times over 5 years. I had to take a year off, and then when I finished, I went to Israel with Christ for the Nations and met some Messianic people there that, you know, I thought, hey, that's pretty interesting. These are Messianic Jews who believed in Jesus, and that was kind of interesting to me, and it just kind of was a seed in my mind and in my heart but I didn't really have anybody to teach me about it, you know, from then on. So for many years, I just went to church and worked with teenagers and youth in the church. But I always knew that there were these people out there that were Torah observant. I didn't really know what it meant. There was a bookstore. It was a Jewish bookstore, a Messianic Jewish bookstore, believe it or not, in Houston, not too far from the church I was attending. And I went in there one day and I started talking to the guy, and he gave me he sold me some books on Messianic walk, and I started reading it, and it just opened my eyes. Just like, wow, I never realized that there was there was just blindness over my eyes. I couldn't understand the Sabbath. I thought, well, things have changed now, and Sunday's the Sabbath and all this stuff. And so that's where it began. Basically, a little influence from my first trip to Israel, and from this little Messianic bookstore around the corner from my church. I just poured myself into these books, and the Sabbath and proper eating and the feast days. That was amazing to me, that there's these feasts out there, and there's this calendar, that God had a calendar, and it wasn't the Gregorian calendar. It was the Hebrew calendar. So that really opened my eyes, and it's been about 7 or 8 years ago now that I've been walking in this Messianic walk.
How did the people respond to you around you as you were becoming awakened to these things?
Well, it was mainly my wife, that was hearing me talk about all these things, and she was raised from a small town in the Christian church, and she was kind of worried, to be honest with you. She was and she's still kind of learning with me, but she hasn't jumped in completely, but she definitely believes in the Sabbath and the feast days, and we honor the Sabbath, and she lights candles, and we'll pray in the Sabbath, and our granddaughters are there, and they love it. They love it. So it's kind of new that we're doing it together as a husband and wife, but at first it was mainly just me for several years. But she was kind of leery of it, and I just constantly just studied the scriptures and about understanding these things and observing the feast. A lot of the feast days fall on during the school years. That's why when I know that you and I have met at Israel a couple of times. Unfortunately, she hasn't been able to go with me because of her teaching, and many of the testings are around the Sukkot, which I've been to Sukkot in Israel twice. But people they're just kind of like watching me, the people that know me, and kind of wonder what's going on. But nobody's really been negative to me about changes that have happened to me.
Well, tell us, you've been to Israel several times now. Tell us a little bit about those trips.
Well, the first time I went was with my wife and with Christ Free Nations, and that was in 1989. 2015, I went to Sukkot, and I went for 22 days between the first of Tishrei, or Rosh Hashanah, and the end of Sukkot, all the way through. And I spent the whole time in Jerusalem, nearly the entire time in Jerusalem, just to observe the feast days, to understand them, understand how the Jews observed them, and to understand how the Messianic people that were there observed them. And we got to know the group that's down in Jordan, in Aqaba, and we spent some time there in Jerusalem with them. It was just wonderful. It didn't start out wonderful. The funny thing was, when I arrived in Israel, I discovered that my suitcase was left in New York, and so I only had one set of clothes, but I had my camera gear, and I had my wallet, my passport. So the next day, I went up the Mount of Olives to take pictures, and then I got pickpocketed. I had no clothes and no money.
Oh, my goodness.
I had a wonderful wife back home who sent me money the next day, because it was Rosh Hashanah that day. I couldn't get any money, or for 2 days the banks were closed. But it was a rough start, but when it was all said and done, it was just a wonderful time, to be in the land. The funny thing was, I got pickpocketed I was entering the Church of the Ascension, which is a church on the Mount of Olives. It's a church supposedly where Jesus Yeshua ascended to heaven from. And so I was at the doorway, and then that church, and was pickpocketed by an Arab salesman, one Arab salesman. Got a trip down the Mount of Olives in a police car. It was the same trip that Yeshua took on a donkey, I think. It was nice. So after that was over, I got to hang out with a lot of great and make a lot of great Messianic friends there.
And then your last trip that you just had for Pesach, how did that go?
Well, the last trip was mostly about B'nai Yosef. The Congress there, it was the third Congress. I had discovered, it's very interesting, Zephaniah, how I discovered B'nai Yosef, because I began to understand that there was these 12 tribes out there, and there were lost tribes, and that Ephraim was the representative of the northern tribes, the one son of Joseph, who Moses had prophesied over about him being a multitude of nations and how these nations would return to the land. And, and I studied prophecy, and I felt that we were at the time when Ephraim is supposed to return. And, this is all studies I've kind of done on the internet, and, got a bunch of fellowship where I live. I studied these things on the internet, so I decided that I was going to fast and pray, and I was going to seek the Father about where was Ephraim. And so I started my fast, and I was in my living room. I went and knelt down at the sofa, and I began to pray. And I felt as soon as I began to pray, I felt in my spirit to go and Google search, where is Ephraim? And so I Google searched it, and lo and behold, up came this information about B'nai Yosef, the children of Yosef. And then I started reading about the first B'nai Yosef Congress that had just happened a couple of months earlier. I think you were at that one, weren't you?
Yes, we've been at each one so far. Yeah.
So anyway, in my prayer, wow, that's a fast answer to a prayer, and so I think that's a fast answer to prayer. So I contacted the person on there, and it wasn't just maybe 5 minutes later, I got this return email from this gentleman named Ephraim Frank, and I praise God, I have found Ephraim. And so my fast only lasted about 5 minutes. It happened really fast. So I began to communicate with Ephraim Frank, and that's how I got involved in B'nai Yosef. And I began to realize that this is where Ephraim was coming from. So I felt that I had found Ephraim, and when I was in Israel for the third B'nai Yosef Congress, it really became clear to me, hey, I am Ephraim, along with all these other people. And this is amazing, the prophecy coming to pass before our very eyes, and we're part of something that's brand new, and it's so powerful and so biblical. So it was really exciting to me, Just the whole trip was amazing.
What was the pulse beat that you felt while you were there at during this last time when you attended the Congress?
I had a lot of resistance to being there. It was a lot of difficulties in my work and difficulties in some extended family. So there was, the enemy was really working against me. But I had this inner peace when I was there, when I finally made it there, because I was pretty exhausted when I got there. But my spirit was refreshed, and in my spirit, I was just telling you a minute ago, in my spirit, it became more solid in me that I am Ephraim. We are Ephraim. And this, although it wasn't a huge crowd of people, it's a very solid foundation of something that's going to become great in the world, in the kingdom. And I felt that also when I was in Tampa, when we had the B'nai Yosef Congress America.
Yeah, the summit.
When we actually signed the article of our founding. Yeah. That was very moving and powerful. Both events were very moving and powerful and meant a lot to me prophetically. It was such an amazing answer to prayer, and how, because really in my area, there's really not a whole lot of fellowship. Although I do fellowship with go across town to fellowship, but going across Houston, this is a long drive. I always the other side, but so I go over there regularly. But it's they don't. In the beginning, I didn't really have any fellowship. They just had you guys on the radio. I was listening to it.
When the Congress was over, you went to the Moshav Givat Yarim, as I understand that's the name of it, and that's with Yemenite Jewish people. Was that your first time that you got a chance to interact with Yemenite Jews?
Yeah, definitely the first time. I didn't really even know they existed. I mean, I knew that Yemenite Jews existed, but I thought they were kind of all mixed in with the Ashkenazi Jews. And I didn't really think they had their own distinctive personality and ways of worship and ways of doing things.
Yeah.
But yet, they're there, and they are quite different from the other Jewish peoples. They were very nice to us. We had a wonderful time. As the group, we were staying in this little house. It wasn't a little house. It was a big house. What do you call it? A little cottage on the property of another house, and it was a Yemenite Jewish family who owned both the house they live in and the cottages that they rented out.
Okay.
And they were invited us to go to the synagogue, the Yemenite synagogue, which was just walking distance, about 3 blocks away. So we all walked over to the Yemenite synagogue to welcome in the Sabbath. But it was also the beginning of Pesach. So it was quite interesting, and I think that they kind of didn't know what to do with us at first. It's like, who are these people? We obviously didn't look like Yemenite Jews.
Yeah.
But when the service was over, I mean, we started. Everybody began to talk, and it was a warm feeling, and it was an interesting event. And I've been to a couple of synagogue services before. And it was definitely different from a regular Sephardic or Ashkenazi synagogue. So, but afterwards, it was time for the Pesach meal. They invited us to come over to sing a little bit with them, and then we were going to go to our own Pesach meal, which was just next door. So we got some pictures of our group standing around them as they were sitting around their table, and we all were singing together. So that was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Now, obviously, you've the Father's brought you through a lot of different things. You've seen a lot early on. It sounded like he was really starting to begin to speak with you about Torah and just beginning to just lighten your pathway as far as where he wants you to walk. And what would you say to our listeners out there who are just starting out in this? What kind of words of encouragement and words of wisdom that you could maybe impart?
What I really enjoy and I would recommend is to follow the Torah portions. Get to understand the Torah. Let the Father speak to you through the Ruach, through the Torah portions. And most Christians, they just kind of blow off the Torah. They call it done away with and all this stuff. But I began to really have the Father speak to me through the Torah and through the Torah portions. So I like to study the Torah portions, and then I have a portion with the Psalms and a portion with the prophets and with the writings of the Gospels, and with also I read a portion of the Acts of the Apostles and the letters that were written in the Brit Hadashah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I said that right or not. Yeah. So what I think is most important to understand is that the Torah is the foundation of our study, and everything goes out from there. So the Torah became real to me, and it wasn't just history anymore. It wasn't just about what happened to the Jews, but it was about what happened to the 12 tribes of Israel. It was the history of the 12 tribes that came out of Egypt, along with the sojourners. It was about my family. And when you approach it that way, that this is your history, this is my history, the events that happened in Egypt, that come out of Egypt and entering into the land is our history, even though we don't live there, but we belong there, and this is our family. That began to really change my life, and I was no longer just a New Testament believer who read a little bit about Old Testament history sometimes. I took Old Testament history in Bible school. But it's no longer Old Testament history. It's the Father speaking through the Torah.
Yes.
And, one thing about it, I've gone a lot to Messianic Jewish synagogues. They're Jewish and they're a little bit different, from those of us who believe in the 12 tribes. But the one thing that I discovered is that the tremendous respect for the Torah and the parading of the Torah. that was one thing that at first I didn't understand it, but now I understand it a whole lot better. That this is God's word spoken through the prophet Moses and the events that happened to our family in history.
Yes,
and they apply to us.
That's a good word. Thank you. Well, we're coming to the end of this interview. Thank you for taking the time to actually speak to our audience, and it's been a real pleasure, Greg, and maybe we'll have you on again.
Okay, Stefania, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Blessings to you and everyone that's maybe listening.
Now we're blessed to share with you the music of House of Aaron. This is Your Presence from the album Walk Beside Me, featuring the voice of Tara Clay. Available at houseofaaron.org.
Let your presence fill this place, like the sunshine fills the sky, and the darkness melts into light, then shadows fade away.
Welcome to the Midrash portion of today's Reunion Roadmap. This is Barry Phillips, along with David Jones, fellow elders with B'nai Yosef of North America. David's in Florida, recuperating from what I hear has been a wonderful United in Worship conference. And David, how are you? And are you recuperated yet?
I'm doing great, and buddy, I am tired, my brother. But I tell you what, it was a great weekend. It really was just a sense of unity among people, and I didn't hear of any divisions being given among people as they were in there, and people were just willing to kind of put a lot of ideas down for the sake of let's just get together and worship our Father.
Wow.
And it was a really great experience. I was blessed to just be a part of it.
Well, we definitely need more of that, and we definitely need to build on that foundation. We'll take what we can. I've been attracted over the last few hours, David, to a text in the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and Messiah said in verse 12, and because of the increase in lawlessness, most of us can understand Torah-lessness, the love of many shall become cold. Mm-hmm. When that thought came across my mind, I was reminded of a spiritual warfare teaching from decades ago. One of my favorite authors in those days was Francis Franzipan. And he talked about the stronghold of cold love. Back in those days, we talked a lot about strongholds. If you go to the book of 2 Corinthians and you look in chapter number 10, there is that whole teaching there about walking. If we walk in the flesh, but we do not fight according to the flesh, the weapons that we fight with are not fleshly, but mighty in Elohim for overthrowing strongholds, which the next verse says is reasonings in every high matter that exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim. The knowledge of Elohim, that's revealed to us in the Torah. So a stronghold, from what those years taught me, is it's something that Hasatan establishes in our minds based on or built out of our own sympathetic thoughts toward a sin. Doesn't have to be something as horrible as an addiction or, something lust-driven, etc. It could be jealousy, it could be pettiness, it could be spite, it could be envy, it could be jealousies, things that we are more easily able to kind of shove under the surface. But regardless of what our sympathetic thoughts toward a particular sin might be, he uses those sympathies, constructs a strong tower, a fortress in our mind, from which he hurls insults and accusations, lies and slanders against others. He convinces us of things that are not true. And when someone tries to reason with you from Scripture, you will justify your opinion, your stance, your attitude, your responses, your words, because you're argumentative and you're being influenced by that which is hiding in this fortress. When we come under the mastery of Yeshua, those fortresses, and sometimes we have more than one, they have to be demolished and thrown down, or else we're never going to get anywhere. So all that being said, when we talk about cold love, David, you can say you love somebody and only love them with the basic idea that there's no warmth, there's no affection, there's no caregiving, there's no servant-heartedness, there's no gentle spirit about it. Maybe sometimes that's when someone's favorite phrase is, I love you enough to tell you the truth, brother. Or they come to you and say, Well, you do know I love you, right? And you know that whatever's going to follow after that opening
Well, that's like
phrase,
saying, no offense, but whatever comes next is going to be offensive.
you put your armor on and pull up your shield as fast as you can, but normally they're a little quicker on the draw and they stab you somewhere before you can get defended in yourself. I have an issue here. Maybe you can help me out. If the knowledge of the Most High and the love of the Most High is revealed to us in the Torah, and Torah should be fostering love, how is it that all of our Torah study and our attempts at walking it out hasn't manifested the warm and affectionate love that we need for one another, but rather it's the very basic co-love variety? It's not across the board, but we see it. What's going on, and what do we need to do?
And one of the things that I think about with this is where Shaul said, knowledge puffs you up. Knowledge makes you prideful and arrogant, if that's all it is. If it's just knowledge. As we go back and we start to understand and start to see that God doesn't change and his Torah is still for us today, as we read the word, we're finding new things, and we're finding, well, I'm trying to do this, but I don't see anybody else doing it. And then we can start becoming critical and judgmental and start pointing fingers. And when something is pointed out to us, our first response is normally, yeah, well, you don't do this or you don't do that. And instead of trying to get to the heart of the Torah, I mean, you have to learn what it says before you discover the heart that's in it. But at the same time, are we trying to pursue the word to know the heart of the Most High, or are we trying to pursue the word to try to judge everybody who's not doing it right? And I think that's a tough place, because the more that we get into the things, I think it depends on the attitude with which we study the word. If we're studying it because we're offended at somebody else, if we're studying it because someone else has upset us or hurt us or anything there, then we're going to study the word to try to be vindicated. And we need to study the word to get to the heart of the Father. When you use this verse in verse 12, iniquity increases and the love of many growing cold, I believe that's also how we're studying the word, but removing ourselves from its very actions at the same time. Instead of producing the loving heart that it's designed to do, to show us to love him and to love each other, we're becoming judgmental of how each other is not doing it the way that we think it should be done.
Say that again, that last.
I don't know if I can. But we're not studying it to show the heart of Yahweh. We're studying it to try to see what is wrong around us so that we can point out everything that's wrong instead of trying to show what's right.
So the Torah is not a toolbox from which we try to fix other people.
No, and I think it's either because we're offended or that can lead to offenses and cause many other things to happen, because in that same portion of scripture that you read, just go back a couple verses and it says many people will fall away and betray one another and hate each other. Well, that's not so hard to see. That's not a hard concept to understand. It's happening. But then the next thing it says, false prophets will come and lead many astray. Well, if there's an offense that's being harbored in you, resentment and bitterness and everything like that, and someone comes up to you and says, I can't believe they did that to you, what automatically just happened? And now you have a comrade, right? And so they come and they pull people away instead of saying, brother, let's see if we could try to make restoration here. Let's stand back and look at the situation to see what we can do. And
well, it is tempting, David, to seize every opportunity to be offended.
Yeah, which we see in the culture today.
Everybody is offended. Everybody is insulted. And then you get the campaigns with the hashtags and so forth. There used to be a concept about being the bigger man in things, taking the high road, not allowing someone else's opinions or words to form the identity of your character or your words, etc. you have to pick and choose your arguments. Some things are just not worth being offended over, and sometimes I think the Jewish mindset is correct in some of this, and that is that there's a rabbinical teaching that says that when things are said, you give the other person every benefit of the doubt that they didn't mean it the way you heard it. And maybe that makes you gullible or naive in some people's estimation, but it sure beats walking around with a chip on your shoulder and angry all the time.
Man, it really does. I mean, but to me, that just shows part of the fruit of the Spirit, the long-suffering, patient, kind. I mean, it just shows some things that we should be walking in anyway. I mean, I know it's hard in this day and age to walk around and give and just to want to think the best of everyone. But we really do need to be looking for the opportunities to show good and letting others see that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I want to make a reference here to James, which I love the book of James. It kind of
I've never noticed that.
Oh man, he just does such a good job of putting a mirror up in front of us and saying, take a look before you say something,
Yeah.
And I'm speaking from personal experience here. But James 3:17 and 18, he says, wisdom from above, and I think that's what we need. We need wisdom from above to handle ourselves in life daily, because that's why we don't want worldly wisdom. We want godly wisdom. And that's going to show us how to walk in his love. Well, what are some of these things that he tells us? So wisdom from above is first of all pure, and then peaceful, and then kind, open to reason, full of mercy, good fruits, without partiality, without hypocrisy, and peacemakers who sow seed in peace will raise a harvest of righteousness. If we truly do love each other, then we're going to be showing all of these things toward the people that we love. Love covers a multitude of sins. I'm not looking to be offended at you or by you.
Mm-hmm.
And what I am doing is looking to try to help bring out the best in you for the sake of the kingdom. And maybe we can work together in that, which I think that's going to keep us from falling away and betraying one another. When you're looking out for another person's best interests, you're not going to betray them. And further, betrayal can only come from someone you trust.
Well, Yeshua, of course, I think was quoting Rabbi Hillel when he said, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. There's a little different application that I think I'd like to suggest. I was in a restaurant recently, and our server brought the bill and so forth. We paid, and I left what would be above the 20% tip line. And both of my daughters have been servers in the past. And, I understand that sometimes they don't get treated very well in the tip department.
Yeah, I've waited a few tables myself.
The server was getting off as we went out of the parking lot and stopped and thanked me for the generous tip. And I said, well, I tip others the way I would want my daughters to be tipped. And if we could treat other people the way we want other people to treat our children, we'll suck it up and endure it on our own part. But if we would think along the lines of, I will treat you the way I want my daughters, my sons to be treated, that would soften our approach, I think, to some people and cause us to treat them, giving them a benefit of a doubt and a little softer edge.
That's a really good way to put it, Barry. Because for ourselves, it's kind of like, you can do whatever you want to me, but buddy, don't lay a hand on my wife. That kind of a thing. So it's like, well, we would put up with a lot more than someone who does something to our kids. I mean, someone comes up to me and they start being rude and obnoxious and everything. Listen, whatever, but they come to my kids and start doing that. Yeah, it might be a little bit of a different story.
It's a little bit of a problem.
So that's a very good point. Well, Barry, I think we're about to wrap it up.
Yes. Send your questions and your comments to reunionroadmap@b'nai We'd love to hear from you.
Here is Ain Ode by Jimmy Black from his album I Run to You. You can find more of Jimmy's music at jimmyblack.com.
Ain't no Nevada, there is no other beside him. Ain't no Nevada, there is no other beside him. Come on, sing it again. We say, ain't no Nevada, there is no other beside him. Ain't no Nevada, there is no other beside him. It was shown so that it might be known from Sinai to Jerusalem. It's awesome wonder, glory and power be to our God. Elyon. Come on, we say, Elyon, Nevada, there is no other beside him. Elyon, Nevada, there is no other beside him. Come on, we say, Elyon, there is no other beside him. Come on, declare it in the earth. And ain't no Nevada, there is no other beside him. Come on, all alone, exalted on the throne is the God over Israel. No other God, no foreign king, just Yeshua. We say, Adon, Nevada, there is no other beside him. No other we say, Adon, Nevada, there is no other beside him. Adon, Adon, Nevada, there is no other beside him. Adon, Nevada, there is no other beside him. Come on, we call his name, Yeshua. Yeshua, 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 we call your name. Come on, lift your voice. We say Yeshua, mighty one. Yeshua, we call your name. Oh, we Yeshua, we call your Your voice and call his name. Yeshua, we say. Yeshua, oh, we say. The great I am. Yeshua, we call your name. Holy One, Yeshua. Yeshua, Yeshua, we call your name. Yeshua, we say, Yeshua, you are awesome, Lord. We call your name. Ain't no there is no other beside him. Ain't no there is no other beside him. Come on, we say, ain't no there is no other beside him. Ain't no there is no other beside him. Would you declare his name with us again?
Hello, this is Sophania Pappas, and we just got done listening to the song by Jimmy Black called Ein Od. It's a song that's very worshipful. It really brings one into the presence, and it's very interesting how we had heard the song following a midrash that's talking about cold love. I mean, me being from northern Minnesota, the first thing when I think of cold, I want to get next to a wood stove or something, you know.
Well, that's a whole nother level above what I experienced growing up in the Deep South. Ein Od, what does that mean in Hebrew?
Basically, and you hear it in the song too, where he's saying there's no other beside thee. So that he is the one that's he's all in all, and he should be everything to us. And I think maybe that ties into maybe just a little bit what our elders were talking about there.
Oh, I think it ties in a great deal.
Yes.
You know, they're talking about our focus being on our Father, on our Creator. The love of God should motivate us as we are studying his word and living it out.
Yes.
But, you know, if you want to do that judgmental attitude and you want to interpret literally and rigidly everything, then where's your real focus?
Yeah.
Is your focus on the God of the word or something else? So, you know, I really appreciate our elders and how they give us such food for thought.
Yes, it's definitely a banquet we get from them.
Well, folks, we are just about at the end of our time, but do visit our website, BneiYosefNA.com. That's BneiYosefNA.com. You can get access to podcasts of Reunion Roadmap and a whole bunch more. So do take a look and join us again next week when we have another edition of Reunion Roadmap. Until then, Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging House of Joseph here in North America.